Hello and welcome to Stay on Target, Games Radar Plus's weekly look at the world of Star Wars. My name is Chris Thurston. I'm here with Samuel Roberts and Jordan Farley to talk about what we know about the latest Star Wars games coming from E3, which will be about a couple of weeks ago by the time this goes out. But Sam, you were there in LA. I think Jordan and I were both watching online, looking for any sign of kind of the direction Star Wars is going to take in games in the next year. I wanted to start off actually by discussing something that I thought was notably absent, and that was, we discussed on a previous episode, whatever it is that Visceral are working on.
Yes.
There's a rumor that they were working on some kind of Han Solo action game. Did you get any hide or hair of it while you were out there, Sam?
No, I really didn't. I mean, they were just dedicated to Battlefront out there, but like every single kind of like clue they've been dropping about what they've been working on has been Han Solo related, which might just be like an almighty bluff. But right now, EA is only talking about Battlefront and the Old Republic, so for now, it's kind of, yeah, it's just on ice.
Yeah, I think some people were expecting to see something there. It'd be interesting to consider why it hasn't happened, but I guess it's just they have their Star Wars game for this year. It's Battlefront. Yeah,
quite early as well, I imagine, because I think Amy Hennig only joined the project just over a year ago, so it might just still be fairly early on, but I'd say next E3, for sure, is when we'll see at least one more Star Wars game, maybe two.
So let's talk about a Star Wars game that does actually exist, as far as we know. It might be a good place to start. And I thought we could start with the easily most boring and least inspiring Star Wars game announced at E3, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, which is not to be confused with Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, which is a game released by Cartoon Network for browsers about 4 years ago. This is a new thing, which is a collectible Star Wars card game.
Now, I don't know what this is, so explain yourself.
It's Hearthstone with a Star Wars skin, basically, is my understanding.
So instead of warlocks, you have Wookiees. I mean, this is
pretty much. It's everyone is making collectible card battlers now because they do very well on. It's for Android and iOS, I think. So they do very well on mobile, and there's a firm precedent set by Blizzard with Hearthstone, and they would like some of that money, please, probably to be filed away under the kind of, Skylanders tie-in Disney Infinity brand of Star Wars fandom, as opposed to the things you actually seriously pay attention to.
And the reasonably cool thing about it is, Star Wars has this long history of collectible trading cards going back to the first film, and there is a precedent for that kind of collecting mentality with Star Wars cards, and it's going to encompass every aspect of the Star Wars universe as well. So it'll have like original trilogy cards and anthology film cards and things like that. It's not just going to be Episode 7 cards or whatever.
They mentioned
it's going to be everything.
Star Wars Rebels cards as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't doubt their capacity to merchandise the hell out of it. There's a firm precedent for that. But I do think it's probably the least inspiring of
I guess for more casual people who do just have a phone and don't necessarily want to get involved in big online multiplayer shooters or want to get involved in an MMO, then this is kind of a perfect way into Star Wars games.
There's also that kind of Topps Collectors app that you can get now, though. So it seems like in some ways its role is already being performed by something that exists now. Yeah. So I don't know. Don't know why it exists, but I guess it's Star Wars here, isn't it? So try anything.
You mentioned MMOs, and so they announced well, it's not the first expansion for Star Wars: The Old Republic, which was BioWare's Star Wars MMO. But it's the first one they've given the real, proper showcase treatment to. Very flashy CGI trailer showing two young, seemingly grey Jedi raised, one wearing black clothes and one wearing white clothes, that, in a kind of I don't know, a sort of like a litmus test for which way they're going to go or whatever. It seems to suggest at the end that one of them is evil and the other one might not be, or maybe they both are, and so on. But it's called Knights of a Fallen Empire, and when I saw it, I thought, and I like the Old Republic, I thought this is a traditional expansion. It'll take the story forward in some ways, and the Shadow of Revan already did that, and as did Rise of the Hutt Cartel, which I think was the one before that. But Sam, you saw it, and apparently it's not what I thought it was at all. It's a single-player game.
Yeah, that seemed to be pretty much what it is. I brought this up after they demoed it to me, and this demo seemed to be an extended kind of KOTOR-style sequence of choices, galaxy-altering choices, good and bad, light and dark choices, and consequences as a result of that. It was like a pure BioWare RPG. And it turns out that's what they're making. They're not making an MMO, any kind of addition to the MMO stuff. In fact, none of those elements really appeared in the demo at all. It seems like they want to make a continuous KOTOR adventure and fulfill the promise of the Old Republic in that sense, which I think is what they always sold it as, right? It's all the KOTOR sequels put together, but it's kind of more of that, and it's ongoing, and episodes will be released periodically. And yeah, it looks like a single-player Star Wars RPG built within the Old Republic.
See, that seems kind of crazy to me, because the Old Republic, you know, was this mixture of single-player narrative stuff, but you could play with friends, and sort of open-world MMO stuff. And admittedly, for a lot of people, the open-world MMO stuff slowed the whole thing down so much that people didn't finish those stories. So I totally get doing something more pared down. But you know, I read something that said that they've removed the kind of multiplayer dialogue, which is where it's a weird system, but you and your friends are all in a conversation together with your characters, and it kind of rolls a dice to determine who gets to speak, which is how real talking works. We'll get the dice out in a bit. But nonetheless, there's this, you know, very participatory thing where you kind of create the stories together with your mates. So the fact that they're now doing this thing where it's just, you know, just your main character on your own, basically playing a single player game, but you need the subscription to the main game to keep playing it, is a completely different proposition.
Yeah, but I think it will appeal quite a lot to a subset of fans who did want a kind of more KOTOR-like experience and less of the MMO stuff, and that all is still there. Everything that they've built so far for that game will exist in the background, but I think they want to attract new players via this very accessible thing. It's very easy to quantify what this is. It's single-player KOTOR. The Old Republic just happens to be built on top of that, which I think is quite a smart way of reinvesting in that series and maybe trying to find a new audience. But it seems like it hasn't been that well communicated by that trailer. Like, they didn't properly explain what it is. And I think if they did, people would have been quite excited because you only found out today when I told you about it.
And I like these things.
Yeah, and it got a good response from you, and I'm sure it would. I'm sure it would from a lot
the test
of BioWare
audience for
fans.
this, yes. I mean, yeah, no, I totally get that. The other thing that's a bit, so they say they're going to do sort of like infinite Old Republic forever now, where you pay your subscription just to get essentially single player story over time. That still seems kind of crazy, given that if you're just taking all of the potential main characters and both genders into consideration, that's 16 voice actors that are needed just to play the protagonist forever.
Yeah.
Like, that was the problem the original game faced, where they tried to expand it, and it's like, actually, the technical considerations that go into just making this happen are insane, because it's insanely ambitious. You know, have a conversation between your character and one other person takes a minimum of 17 voice actors. And like how they're going to handle that, I'm still not 100% convinced. But apparently, something I didn't know is that the Old Republic actually has done very well. That it's actually made loads of money since it went free to play, and it might be the thing that's now making it possible to do something this kind of audacious with it.
Yeah, it was a surprise. Like, I thought it was just going to be, you know, there forgotten as things went on. Part of me wonders now, though, if instead of doing a kind of full KOTOR style game at BioWare, whether this is their answer to that. So people expecting a KOTOR game on PC and consoles in the next few years, there's a chance that this might be it. This might be what they're doing. This is BioWare's big Star Wars thing. It's a very interesting format for presenting that, for sure.
So let's talk about Battlefront. Sam, you've now played it. Just walk me through that experience.
It was wonderful, Chris.
Thank God.
I was kind of relieved that it's retained the old Battlefront spirit and being quite a simple shooter. Like, it's not like Battlefield 4 where you start and then you're sniped by some teenager right away. It's a much more straightforward laser shooter. Like, I was carrying like a basic laser rifle, and it's kind of good at long and short range, like equally. And while headshots kind of apply, it doesn't feel like the sort of thing you can really sort of get a massive advantage over another player at. I think they want general kind of Star Wars fans to play this, not necessarily hardcore shooter fans. And playing the kind of Hoth Echo Base level, it was just really good fun. Like, there's a kind of run up to the Echo Base entrance, and then next to it is this enormous battlefield with all of these trenches, and loads of turrets around and stuff. And there's like an AT-AT next to you, and then there's other AT-ATs off in the distance. It's a huge feeling place, and a really kind of nice sense of scale to the battles. And it was just really, really cool. Like, the attention to detail in the Echo Base, like I think you saw it in the EA conference, just going through those kind of corridors and stuff. Doesn't look quite as good as that, I don't think, in multiplayer. Like with, I think we had 40 players, but it's always going to take a hit at that. But it still looks beautiful. It looks like it's exactly the game people want it to be. They want a good Star Wars shooter in Star Wars year, and I think they're going to get one.
What side were you playing as?
I was on the Empire side.
Did you win?
Yes, we did marginally.
Congratulations.
I was 3rd in our team out of 20, which is pretty good.
Did anyone get to play as Vader?
I didn't see Vader actually, or Luke on the battlefield, but like I nonetheless very much enjoyed being a foot soldier and being functional in that role.
A little cog of Empire there. You mentioned, well, we were talking about this earlier today, that there's like what is the system for playing as Vader or playing as a hero character like Luke Skywalker?
I think you have to collect these tokens dotted around the environment, but like it's yeah, they're kind of like just around, but like there doesn't seem to be. It's not the most logical solution to how something like that could work. I could be wrong about that, but it feels like what I missed about Battlefront was you could just walk up to a vehicle, jump in it and go. That doesn't happen now. Like I was Imperial, but I went up to a snowspeeder on the off chance I could just climb in and take off, but I couldn't.
You're not. They're very big on branding, the Rebels.
Yeah,
like
it's very off-brand, yeah, for sure. But it was really good. Like it was definitely a step up from Battlefront in terms of complexity. You get some of that DICE's expertise in that, but it's more just like the being in the environment. Like it was just wonderful to have a good Star Wars experience in this beautiful HD recreation of Hoth. Like I think it's going to impress a lot of people for sure.
Did you get to try any of the other vehicles at all?
No, sadly I didn't. No, I was hanging around and trying to collect the tokens, but it just doesn't seem that intuitive as to how it actually works. Yeah, which is a little bit confusing.
If it is collecting tokens, then surely everyone's just going to be running around collecting tokens and not bothering to shoot anyone.
I guess
just trying to be Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker and getting in vehicles and stuff.
That is
like
possible.
That
is possible. Yeah. I mean, it's possible I've misexplained the system entirely. But let's assume I haven't, and that I don't think that will happen though, because I think that I don't know. It's a satisfying feedback loop to being a foot soldier and being in that place. Like it's very well done as a recreation of Hoth. Like, yeah, it's incredibly exciting. Yeah. Like, people definitely get swept up in it, even if it's not the best shooter in the world. Yeah.
Got an incredible response as well, didn't it? Because I mean, I just watched it on the conference, and from what I could tell, it got one of the biggest cheers out of like the whole of the Sony conference when they announced some crazy games, and it got one of the biggest eruptions of applause that I heard there.
They showed off the wave combat co-op system, right? Which they were also demoing there. I didn't get to have a go on that, unfortunately, but yeah, like a colleague of mine did, and it was, and he said it was really, really kind of solid as like a kind of single player solution if you don't want to do the kind of big scale battles all the time. And yeah, and in that kind of mode, the game looks a lot prettier as well, because obviously you don't have loads of players running around. But I think it deserved the response it got. Like it's what people have been craving for a good Star Wars game for years now, or a Star Wars game for years. It's just been in you know, this weird kind of like holding pattern whilst LucasArts kind of sorted its stuff out. EA got hold of the license, and it's finally here this year. And I think people are going to really enjoy it. Yeah, even if it's not that complex to play.
And that is all we've got time for this week. Check back on Monday at 4 o'clock for more Stay on Target.